Welcome back to the Dreamlit podcast. In this episode, we're joined by my friend Cody Smith, who has recently released a new book called Public Speaking Panic. It's a super quick read on how to prepare yourself for a public speaking event in a hurry. You can find it on Amazon, and I'll also put a link in the description. On this episode, we're going to talk all about Cody's experience with writing this book, as well as the publishing and promotion process. So stick around to the end if you have your own plans for a book release in the future. You might find some of these tips useful. Without further ado, I give the floor to you, Cody.
Yeah, sure. So, hey guys, I'm Cody Smith. Known Scott for a little while now, so I'm super excited to be on this podcast today.
First off, I just want to get some background on you. So tell us about yourself.
Sure.
I guess primarily in the book world, since that's going to be our focus today.
Got it. So about myself, I got started with publishing way back in 2017. I say way back, that was only like a couple of years ago. It just feels forever ago. I actually was horrible at public speaking through like high school and early college, and then took some drastic measures to get over it. And that was kind of what laid the groundwork for the first book, which is called Stage Fight. And honestly, didn't think much would come of it because it's a book about public speaking in a sea of a bunch of other books on public speaking. But it actually did really well and people really enjoyed it. And then that kind of started, that was actually first published January of 2018. And that was like the first every year as a published author.
Yeah, that was right when I met you too.
That was exactly right when we met. Yeah. So that was a good time. That was a crazy time for me trying to figure out this whole run an author business kind of thing, because at first I didn't think it would make any money. But then it just kept bringing in royalty checks. And I was thinking, I need to write some more books. And so I did. In 6 or 7 books later, it's 2020 and haven't gotten the chance to publish books for other people. I've been in it for quite some time now. I've seen the industry change quite drastically over the past couple of years. But it's been awesome. It's been incredible. And then taking everything I've learned into this latest book has been an incredible journey.
Yeah, it just seems like you know exactly what you're doing in my eyes. And that's why I wanted to have this talk with you.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Yeah, so I wanted to also maybe a little bit more background in terms of the non-book world, just so our viewers can get an idea of what your background is.
Yeah, so I am an electrical engineer. That's what I went to college for. And so definitely a nerd, love anime, things of that sort. Never got outside of the cartoons for sure. And actually joined the Air Force right out of college. So I became an officer in the Air Force as an engineer. So I was a nerdy airman. And it was a little bit more of the corporate Air Force where I was in Space Command. So I dealt with satellites and antennas and things of that sort. So that's my full-time job. So that's what I do. I do engineering.
Yeah, I knew you were Air Force because when we met, we talked about it a little bit, but I didn't know you were on the electrical engineering side of things. That's cool. Okay, now let's get into the book stuff.
All right, sounds good.
For your newest book, let's talk about the process of what writing that book was like. Or I suppose you can give us the process in general, for writing a book.
Sure.
I know it's a pretty big question, so let's start off with the writing process.
Yeah, we can cover it. And I'll kind of actually take us back to that first book, because when I first started writing Stage Fight, I figured I would just open up a Word doc and I'll just start at the beginning and I'll just make my way to the very end. And I'm like, this will be amazing. I'll just type it out. And I got about 10 pages in and it was horrible. The whole experience was awful. I hated it. I ended up deleting it. So that was January 2017. So it was a good 6 months before I actually figured out a way to how you actually start a book. It's a very simple process. You start out with a mind map. So you'll mind map
Gotcha.
Everything on that topic. So for me, it was public speaking. So everything I knew about public speaking, I mind map on this giant piece of paper. It just looked like a massive chaotic plate of spaghetti.
And that's what you said in your new book too, right?
Yeah, because it works. It works. If you need to brain dump ideas onto paper, because it's tough, just sitting there looking at a blank screen and be like, let magic happen, and it won't. So mind mapping allows you to take filters away, because we kind of judge what we write. It's hard to judge this arrows and bubbles and little bits of text. It's hard to judge it. So you can put whatever you want, you put it on the piece of paper. And then from there, you turn that into an outline for your book. And at that point, there's no question as to far what you're going to write about. You just go to the first thing in the outline and go, I'm going to write about this until there's nothing left inside of me to get on paper. And then I'll just go to the next thing. And that's how I got the first book written. And that's how I've written every single book from then, is starting with that process.
So you pretty much nailed the method down like at the very beginning, or at least the initial like organization part. That's
right. Yeah, that was definitely a big piece of my success. It was not magical writing. It wasn't like a grand marketing plan. Like, it was just starting with a really good foundation.
I'll keep that in mind if I decide to write a book.
What
would you consider these books like in terms of genre? Because I know they're more like informative, obviously nonfiction. And is there like a specific genre for that?
It's hard to categorize because everything almost lumps into like self-help.
Gotcha.
Just about like self-improvement, self-help. And that is definitely the case with public speaking.
Gotcha. So is that what you put as Amazon, like the genre? Like
that's like everything falls under like nonfiction, self-help for the most part. Yeah. And then there's subcategories in there. There is a category for public speaking and things of that sort, but it all falls under like self-help and self-improvement.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know for the future.
Yeah.
So right after you organize, you start writing. What's your process for like writing in terms of, do you do it every day? Do you write like at a certain time of day? Do you try to like fill a certain amount of words per day, or like what's your strategy on that?
Good question. So I like to handwrite everything.
Handwrite? That's impressive. That's freaking impressive.
I do not. I've tried doing just sitting at like a keyboard or something, and what comes out is just hot garbage. Like, it's really, really bad. And I think I'm typing too fast for how slow I'm thinking about what I want to say. And so handwriting forces me to slow down. And so I can actually fully flush out a sentence and then really start to think about what am I want to say next? What point do I want to say next? And that makes it flow, and I get everything out that I want to. And you start seeing a lot better quality writing from handwriting. So Stage Fight was handwritten. Public Speaking Panic, which is the newest book, that was handwritten. Certainly didn't take me as long because it's not a very long book, but all these books were written out from a notebook. So I have notebooks that are just full of my handwritten books that get dictated later into text.
Would you say you have nice handwriting?
No. No. It's I do write in all caps. I think that's an engineering thing. I'm not sure. But that does help out a lot as far as dictating goes, because if it didn't, it would just look really, like hieroglyphics kind of deal where it's like symbols, like it's not even words at that.
Yeah, like harder to type after too.
Yes. And then as far as like timing goes, like it's usually in the morning. Morning's like when my brain's the freshest. And I like to go to a coffee shop, and I'll be there for a good 2 hours. And I usually don't worry about word count all too much. There was a writer, and I think he's passed away. He might not have, I'm not sure, but they asked him, because he wrote like 76 novels in his lifetime. Dang. That was his career. And they were like, how did you write 76 books? And he said 200 ugly words a day. And that was his process. Like, no matter what, like he just set the bar really low. And that's what I like to do. Like, set the bar like really low to like a word count that you can do, and then just write super ugly. And, because the editor, like, edit pretty, right? Get a nice editor, but write really ugly, and you'll be able to get it down on paper a lot faster if you're just trying to nitpick everything that you get down on paper.
Gotcha. Did you already have like an editor at the very beginning?
I had to find one.
Gotcha.
And I lucked out. I got someone recommended an editor to me, and she does phenomenal work. And I hand her this pile of garbage, and then she hands me this golden egg afterwards. So I don't think people, especially if you're thinking about writing a book, we put so much pressure on what we put on paper at the beginning, as if that's what people are going to see, and it's not. There are definitely several rounds of refinement that it goes, but everything's got to start with the crude material, and that crude material is what you first put on paper.
Would you say were certain ones easier than others?
The first one was chaotic because I had no idea how I was going to pull it all together. And that was before I even worked with an editor to realize like, that's what they do. Like they're really good, not just on like proofreading and fixing grammar, which I'm horrible at, but they're also really good at like organizing material and doing transitions and things of that sort. So a lot of the things that might scare you, the editor does. I will say that the editing process itself does freak me out a bit, even still. Like when I get back my manuscript from an editor, like I almost don't even look at it for 2 straight days. Like I won't even open it because I have to like build myself up to see what's going to be inside. Like what are you going to find inside? Is my manuscript completely broken? Is it trash? And it's never been the case. Like I've never had a point that something was so bad that it can't be easily fixed. But I still feel like that little bit of pressure before getting it.
Gotcha.
So that's the hardest part. It's never writing. It's like seeing what the editor thought about it.
You're scared of like really, really bad feedback.
Yeah. And I think we all are.
Yeah, definitely.
But that kind of warms you up. That's a good warm up to the point that you actually publish it. Because at that point, people can write reviews and they can be really good or they can be really bad. And people on a computer can be mean.
No, I agree. I mean, I've never had like super negative comments on my YouTube videos before, but so I guess I've been lucky, but at the same time, I don't get like a huge amount of views. So it's like, it's a balance thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the further I grow, like I'll eventually have someone who writes a very, very mean comment.
Yeah. And they're going to come in and stomp on your hard work. And the thing that I like to do is like when I got my first horrible review, who didn't only like make fun of like my writing, but they made fun of everyone else who left a review that was actually positive. So they like stomped on everybody. And I put that on my wall. Like, it's like a high five, like, yeah, 1 star. Because you got to be proud of that. You got to be proud of being able to put yourself out there and try, because there's so many people who got to that point, never actually did anything. Like I can't imagine the amount of videos that people have made and never published because they were afraid of that.
Yeah, I admire your tenacity, man. Like I have no idea how I would react to something like that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the first day after that, it did bum me out. Like there was a period where I was like, man, I kind of hurt, you know? And then, but after that I was like, nah, I'm not going to let this hold me down. Cause it was bothering. Like I didn't write for a good day, a good 2 days. It did get me down, and I didn't think it would. Right. So, which is what kind of led to me putting it up on my wall. Like, no, that's a trophy. That is not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah. It's definitely like sometimes, I feel similar when videos I put a lot of work into don't get as many views as I would like initially. Right. But I recently viewed my channel again, my older videos, and those videos get like more views, even though it's like, for instance, a year ago, a video that got maybe 50 views now has like 1,000, right? And for me, that makes me happy, because it shows me that even though the videos now that I made with a lot of hard work don't get that many views now, it could potentially get more views later on.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and think about it, like the initial 50 does it, you're like, oh man, it's only 50 people, but at 1,000, right? 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Like it would take forever for you to do that by yourself, to go around to people to show them your video. But over that time of you doing nothing now with that video, 1,000 people have come and seen it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a shift in mindset to try to look at it in a more positive way, so that you keep doing it, you keep producing. That's the goal, right? We keep producing until we just get better and better and better. That's
right. And then do you ever, sometimes you look at 1,000, right? And like, let's say you take away all the other videos that ever existed, and you look at your video and it has 1,000 views, 1,000 people. That's a ton of people. And does it ever, like, you look at that and you look at other videos that have like tens of thousands of views, and then you're like, now all of a sudden you're like looking down on your 1,000 views?
Yeah.
Because I do that with books. I look at other people's books and I go, oh gosh, they have so many more
yeah
reviews than I do. I'm just crushing it. And so I might have 50 to 60 reviews in my first book. which is awesome. But then you see other books and they're in like the hundreds and you're like, oh.
No, I feel you. I mean, whenever I do that, I try to like, I made a video about this actually. Whenever I do that, I try to tell myself not to compare those view counts and sort of be more inspired by the bigger videos out there. Just seeing it and being like, you know, that video is really good. That's why it has that many views. What can I do to make my videos better? That's usually the approach I try to take, you know. But of course, there are moments of weakness where you're like, dang it, why?
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
There's a split between the philosophical mind and the ideals you want to try to live by, and then the more primitive mind that just feels jealous.
That's right. The envy piece. And I think that's just part of the growing process.
Yeah. So you said you lucked out in finding your editor.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone wanted to find an editor, do you know any places where other people might be able to find an editor?
Yeah. So I actually went through an experiment. It was a little expensive, but it was well worth it. And so my current editor, because she does such good work, right? She gets busy, right? She gets booked up quick. And so at this point where I'm having, I got a really aggressive schedule to get 10 books out this year. And that means a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And so I can't get on my editor's schedule.
It's a lot of
enough.
books.
Yeah, it's a ton of books. And so I can't get on her schedule enough to get them all edited by her. So then I'm trying to like go out and find another editor. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do because you don't know what their quality is. It's kind of a gamble as far as what they do. So I went to Upwork.com, and so Upwork is where you just go find like freelancers and things of that sort, people who are marketing their skills, editing being one of them. And I took my manuscript of a most recent book, and I gave each editor that applied for the book to be the editor a chapter. So like the first editor, he got chapter 1, and the second editor got chapter 2, and third editor got chapter 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allowed me, so I just paid them to edit that one chapter. I didn't pay them each one to edit the entire book. Because what I don't want to do,
probably been more expensive, huh?
Been way expensive. And then if you just choose one editor from a sample and they edit the entire book and really it's not that good, like you just edited the entire book and now it's not good and you got to do it all over again.
True. So
I had about 15 different editors go through the process of editing different chapters, and that allowed me to sample. And I paid them. Like, you don't have to, because you can it's pretty standard to have an editor do a free sample, but I wanted to see their best work for an entire chapter. So I paid them to edit the entire chapter, which they really appreciated, which meant I got a lot more higher quality work and allowed me to see their entire breadth of their skills.
Yeah, their potential.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you got to actually evaluate each chapter and go, okay, this person took this chapter and did something really amazing with it. And so that helped me narrow down who's this editor I ultimately want to work with for the style that I'm really going for.
That's smart.
Yeah. So at the beginning of my author career, I would have never done that. Would have been too scared to even spend the money to find a good editor.
Yeah. I mean, the more I'm doing these things, the more I'm sort of willing to spend money actually trying to achieve what I want. It sort of like stems way back in college, right? When I wanted to start doing YouTube stuff, but like my friends were so cheap that they wouldn't want to buy like a $70 mic. It makes sense. People are extremely cheap when they're younger. I feel like in high school, $5 was like so much.
That was a meal, if not more.
Obviously, money is still money, and you want to not spend it frivolously. But
yeah, and I think in the beginning, like I was so likely to go spend money on something stupid, and then I was not likely to go spend money on an investment. Like in your case, it would be like a mic or a new. In your case, you do more of like the stenciling and the cartoonist videos and things of that sort.
Yeah, the whiteboard
right?
stuff.
The whiteboard stuff, right? So then that costs money to get that software and things of that sort. So for me, it was like investing in a really good editor and not just finding the cheapest person I could find who was just going to do okay work. And then paying a lot of money for a really great book cover, knowing that people do judge books by their book cover. Right?
Yeah.
And then developing your skills on like advertisement and copying. And then like right now I even have a coach that helps me with my publishing to really just up my game. And it's not cheap. 2 years ago, I would have never spent this kind of money to learn what I'm learning now. But now I'm seeing like, what does this accelerated growth mean? What does it mean to actually do 3 years worth of work in 6 months?
Yeah.
Really start building things up.
And you're seriously doing that, considering the amount of books you're releasing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It took me half a year to write and release one book the first time. And so now we're looking at doing 10 times that in the same amount of time. And it's going to be nuts.
I admire like your ability to do that, man. It's impressive.
Now I just need to have the ability to sleep better at night. And then I'll be rolling.
Okay. So you mentioned that you got coaching for publishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I feel is quite mysterious to me. So it might be mysterious to people watching or listening.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on that process a bit more?
Yeah. So the